Scooby-Doo and the Curse of the 13th Ghost is the follow-up to the 1980s series The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, and opts as a sort of finale for that show. It was directed by Wes Gleason and written by Tim Sheridan. Overall, 13th Ghost is a very solid film. It has surprisingly good humor, decent set pieces, and something for each character to do. It also brings up old continuity without too hideous retcons. Not every joke lands, and there's not quite enough content to cover a full film, leading it to feel stretched, but the positives outweigh the negatives and make this worth watching. It's surprising that Return to Zombie Island turned out so disappointing, as the other two films in the trilogy are in the upper half of Scooby content. The film begins with a sepia-tone flashback, giving some backstory to the 13 ghosts. In it, Vincent Van Ghoul, originally voiced by Vincent Price, but now Maurice LaMarche, aka The Brain in Morbo, him and his friend/lover are fleeing from some sort of gargoyle, who is both a ghost and a demon. Eventually they defeat him, but Mortifer is killed. Then it cuts to credits, which offers a summary of the TV show via song, the best way of transmitting information. After that is the initial incident, which is in just about every Scooby-Doo film. This time, however, the gang catches the wrong guy and is forced by the sheriff to give up solving mysteries. It's an interesting turn, although it has very minimal impact on the rest of the trilogy, or even really this film, as they immediately head off to solve a mystery, but it's out of the sheriff's jurisdiction, so legally they're in the clear. The gang has a garage sale which has a number of fun references, and they discover the crystal ball which brings in the 13th ghost story. This also means catching up Fred and Velma on the details of the show, as they were apparently away at camp during that series. The characters themselves were often not in the picture during that era, as there was more emphasis on Scrappy-Doo and Scooby-Doo and less on the other characters. The group then heads towards the creepy mansion that is the home of Vincent Van Ghoul, but first they have to deal with an evil Tesla. The whole Christine situation is never really explained, but I guess a wizard did it. The chase is a fairly decent action sequence, probably the best of the film. In general, the first act is very strong, with a good mix of character stuff, excitement, and story. There's a decent amount of exposition, but it never feels overwhelming. It's also quickly established as the hyper-competent Daphne, who takes on the leadership role, leaving Fred feeling a bit inadequate. This has a decent payoff at the end, with him being the cheerleader for the team, metaphorically and literally, as he had attended a cheer camp the previous summer, which pays off some of the odd turns of phrase used before. Velma's big arc is her disbelief in the supernatural and confronting literal, physical ghosts. This is a little bit weird, as the film is in continuity with Zombie Island, Witch's Ghost, and similar, and given Trick or Treat, she's also in the DC universe, all of which have the supernatural, which is unexplainable in any other way. Ignoring the greater context, however, it's a fine arc for the film, with some early victories for science, although her skepticism is stretched at the end, as a magical wind transports her and Fred up the mountain. The mountain being in Tibet, where the majority of the film takes place. That's where the MacGuffin for the film is, a chest that contains the 13 ghosts, or 12 of them as the 13th is out and about, the 13th being a goofy gargoyle. His face is very unfortunate, as the rest of him, the wings and flames, are fairly intimidating. In the end, he's revealed to be a guy in a mask, which explains it somewhat, although it doesn't explain how he transformed into a spectral steamroller. The gang arrives in Tibet via Van Ghoul's plane, which has a certain kind of style, and there's some more comedy with Stewardess Scooby and Captain Shaggy. It's always good to see the characters being competent in an unexpected way. The new setting also means new clothes for the gang, including an adorable sweater for Scooby. Soon after arriving, the gang splits up, with Fred and Velma meeting up with Flim Flam, a character from the original show, all grown up. It's best not to think about that too much, as the Scooby Gang's ages apparently exist in an alternate timeline. Meanwhile, the rest of the group encounters the ghost Tesla, and it causes an avalanche. This set piece goes on a little long, but it's better than a later chase scene at the monastery. That's where the film loses itself, as there's no sense that the area they're running around is a real place. Scenes jump from one to another with no relation between them, and in general the editing just feels really shoddy, and one bad action sequence is such a huge sour note. Because the monastery isn't established properly and the film spends so much time there, it's hard to feel invested in what's happening. The film comes to its expected conclusion, with everyone meeting up and fighting with the villain, character conflicts being resolved, and it's revealed that Mortifer, the guy from the opening, wasn't killed, and instead just disappeared and has been masquerading as a demon ghost in order to get the fancy MacGuffin and sell it. As always, greed is the Scooby-Doo motivation. The film begins really strong, but it's let down by a stretched second half that doesn't have enough to do, and his characters go back to the same place over and over. The character stuff is largely good, although Velma's arc is a bit nonsensical, and the humor is consistently solid, as long as you have a tolerance for bad puns. With all that in mind, it lands solidly in the B tier. Maybe B- if we allowed for that. Surprisingly, the gang already went to Tibet and Happy Halloween, so no new locations are added to the map for the franchise. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and be well.